Lucinda Dickens, how did Charles Dickens popularize the Christmas holiday as we know it nowadays?
When Charles Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol, it changed the way that everybody thought about Christmas, because he had made people realize that it needed to go back to what it had used to be, which was being about philanthropy, caring about poor people, making sure that people had enough to eat and drink, warm clothes, that they weren't going to die on the streets from cold. All of the things that the Ghost of Christmas Present in A Christmas Carol shows Ebenezer Scrooge, these were things that Dickens wanted his readers to realise they needed to help change. What he wanted them to realise was that every single one of them was a little bit like Ebenezer Scrooge, and therefore they needed to change their behaviour. And it was amazingly effective. It also made people realise that they loved Christmas stories and they wanted more of them. So poor Dickens after that became plagued with every year, write another Christmas story, till he was absolutely sick of it.
"A Merry Christmas, Uncle, God save you," cried a cheerful voice. It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, who came upon him so quickly that this was the first indication he had of his approach. "Bah!" said Scrooge. "Humbug!" He had so heated himself with rapid walking in the fog and frost, this nephew of Scrooge's, that he was all in a glow. His face was ruddy and handsome, his eyes sparkled, and his breath smoked again. "Christmas a humbug, Uncle," said Scrooge's nephew. "You don't mean that, I'm sure." "I do," said Scrooge. "Merry Christmas! What right have you to be merry? What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough." "Come then," retorted the nephew gaily. "What right have you to be dismal? What reason have you to be so rough? You're rich enough." Scrooge, having no better answer ready on the spur of the moment, said "Bah!" again, and followed it up with "Humbug." "Don't be cross, Uncle," said the nephew. "What else can I be?" retorted the uncle, "when I live in such a world of fools as this? Merry Christmas? Out upon Merry Christmas! What's Christmas time for you but a time for paying bills without money, time for finding yourself a year older but not an hour richer?"
How did Dickens focus on charity, shift Christmas to a holiday of goodwill and giving?
Well, the very idea for writing A Christmas Carol came to Dickens when he had read a report into the employment and working conditions of children. And he was heartbroken by what he read. There was a man called Dr. Thomas Southwood Smith, who was a very important campaigner, and he said to Dickens, "I'd like you to be part of my campaign," and he sent him this report. And initially Dickens was going to write a report for the government, a kind of pamphlet that could be given to people. And then he just thought, well, who's going to read this? Nobody's going to be interested. So the idea for writing a book that helped to benefit poor children came into his head, and he decided to write it about Christmas, decided to write it about a miser having this big conversion. And his publishers thought that that was a really stupid idea, because they didn't think that Christmas was something people were that interested in or that they wouldn't want to read about. Dickens knew better than his publishers. And it was, of course, this monumental success. He actually wrote his second Christmas book while living in Italy. He was living in Albaro, which is now, I believe, part of Genoa, but then was just outside Genoa. And it's called The Chimes because it was inspired by all of the church bells that he heard around him in Genoa while he was living there. But this was written because by that time, 1844, Christmas Carol had been such a huge sensation that everybody decided they wanted a Christmas book, and all other authors were trying to write one and publishers were trying to get people to write them. But when he was writing A Christmas Carol, he wasn't doing it from such a commercial point of view. He was doing it from the standpoint that what he really wanted was to make a change in the lives of poor people, particularly poor children, inspired by his friend Dr. Thomas Southwood Smith. The fact that it was such a huge commercial success was just incredibly lucky.
Beyond tradition, how does the social message of A Christmas Carol still resonate in modern Christmas observance?
Well, we have a lot of charitable ideas at Christmas. I mean, I think the saddest thing that we see, particularly in Britain at the moment, is I've never known so much poverty in Britain in my lifetime as there is now.
Okay.
So the message of A Christmas Carol, still throughout so much of the world, is really, really relevant. And the idea of the gap between the rich and the poor that Dickens wrote about, that is happening, I believe, all throughout Europe now. Everywhere is becoming divided by either having or not having wealth. So sadly, A Christmas Carol is just as relevant as it was in 1843. And every year journalists will write and say, well, Dickens told us this in 1843 and it's still happening. But it's absolutely true. And I do think that the fact that we really want new Christmas Carol films every year on TV or in the cinema, the story still appeals to people. They understand that the fundamental message of everybody needing to take part in helping those less fortunate is a really important thing. I always think, when you think of Gandhi saying, be the change you want to see in the world, that is what I believe the essence of A Christmas Carol is. Ebenezer Scrooge had to change, Dickens's readers had to change, everybody needed to make that change for themselves, and that's just something that's still very modern today.
Can we say that Charles Dickens is the father of modern concept of Christmas, how we know?
We can, absolutely. In the way that Christmas is celebrated, definitely. I mean, A Christmas Carol spawned the entire movie industry. Not just the films about A Christmas Carol, but the idea that people want a Christmas story comes from Dickens. The very fact that it was about fun, spending time with family, all these things that Dickens puts into A Christmas Carol. Yes, some people already did that, such as the Dickens family themselves, but this wasn't normal at the time. Not everybody did it. So it is really important for people to know that this was how Dickens helped to change it.
I'm Italian, you know Rome, Vatican City, Nativity, etc.
Yeah.
But do you think is London the best place where we can celebrate Christmas?
Or any Italian's going to speak to me if I say yes. But I think if Italians haven't experienced London in the build up to Christmas, they should come because it is really fun. Now, I've been in Rome in December and I loved things like the chestnut sellers and the Christmas lights. We have all that here in spades, loads and loads of them. And it's fun. It's a great place to come and celebrate Christmas. People in Britain seem to love Christmas and there's a lot that's made of it. And, you know, there's wonderful theatre, cinemas, but also lots of things you can do for free. Walking around London, seeing the Christmas lights, or, you know, things that you don't have to pay much for, like going ice skating or whatever. So it's really fun. And there's beautiful carol concerts, indoor, inside churches, outside in places like Trafalgar Square. It's just a great place to come to for Christmas.
What price would you pay to travel in time and celebrate Christmas with your 19th century relatives, especially in the very room where we are here right now, because remember that we are in the living room of the Charles Dickens original house.
Oh, I couldn't tell you how much I'd pay, because I wouldn't even know, but it would be so fascinating. It would be amazing to sit down and talk to them all. It would be so fascinating. I've written a biography of Charles and Catherine's daughter, Katie, who was born in this house. I cannot tell you how many times when I was writing it, I wished I could go back and ask her questions and say, what did you think about this person? And did this really happen? It would be really wonderful to watch Dickens come up with one of his stories. There's a lovely memory from his brother-in-law, his sister's husband, of being in this house during a party. This was when they were young and Dickens wasn't that well known and not that wealthy. And he had a deadline, a writing deadline, and he disappeared off to his study. And then he went back into the drawing room and he sat there, probably just with a little table in the corner, writing, but he had to be in the middle of the party with everyone around him. And I love that idea that he was there, present, but working on his books. I mean, what a wonderful thing to have experienced. I'd love to go back and see that.
Allow me to wish you Merry Christmas to your family and above all your well-known and most famous relative Charles Dickens.
Grazie e buon Natale.
Grazie e buon Natale a te.